Wife spots husband taking wedding ring off when he leaves home, follows him once. Bye, honey, Leonard said, blowing Ada a kiss in the air as he opened the front door. Ada smiled tightly, but threw a kiss back in the air too. When her husband closed the front door, she rushed to the window to peek at him. It was wrong of her. She shouldn't be spying or suspecting her husband, but she had been for a while. It didn't make sense, and she didn't understand why her gut was so anxious for the past 2 weeks. But she couldn't deny it. Leonard had started leaving for work way earlier than usual, explaining there was a new project he needed more time to work on. But her suspicions only got worse when she saw Leonard in the middle of the front yard, typing something on his phone. Who is he messaging? She wondered, trying to see better, but discreetly, in case he turned to the house. Leonard finished whatever he was doing on his phone and put it away, but what he did next turned Ada's stomach into mush. He quickly took his wedding ring off and placed it in his pocket. Alarm bells ran off, and she was so queasy she almost vomited right on the window. A man taking off his wedding ring is a sign of one thing and one thing only. Right? Ada despaired as Leonard got into his car, turned on the ignition, and drove away. Her first instinct was to fall into a deep ball and wail herself to sleep over her cheating husband, but that wouldn't have been productive. Instead, she moved quickly, grabbing her car keys from the bowl by the door and running while clicking the remote button to open the car door. She backed out of the driveway as quickly as possible, not caring if another car was passing by. The last thing she wanted was to lose his trail, but her foot released the pedal when she spotted his car. She didn't want to be caught either. Ada trailed carefully behind him, not wanting to raise any suspicions when he looked in the rearview mirror. One thing was clear, Leonard was not heading to work because he took a completely different turn. He should have gotten into the main avenue to exit the suburban neighborhood towards the city to his office. However, Leonard took the opposite turn, passing more and more houses until finally he stopped at an old house. He parked right in front and exited his car. Ada had to stay far behind so she wouldn't be seen. But her husband seemed to be arranging his hair first, which only turned her stomach even more. "Oh, gosh," Ada said, but her nose wrinkled, and her pain turned to anger. "Sure, get pretty for her, you cheating loser. I'm going to call my lawyer and take you to the cleaners. Your mistress won't get a dime from you." While Ada spoke to herself, imagining all kinds of scenarios about ruining Leonard's financial situation during their divorce, her husband went inside. When she noticed this, her emotions changed once again. The pain was back, and her queasy stomach returned. "What should I do?" she asked herself, rubbing her belly with one hand. Would she puke on her husband's mistress if she went inside? Would that be embarrassing or just what that little homewrecker deserved? Should she take pictures? Would it favor her in court? Ada was trying to remember the TV shows and social media posts she had read where people who proved their spouse's infidelity got to keep more. One little thought entered her mind, but she knew it was all wishful thinking. What if there's another explanation? What if he's not cheating? Ada hoped, but she knew it was futile. It just didn't make sense that her loving husband, who had been so excited to start trying for a baby a month ago, was suddenly cheating. Ada shook her head. She was there. She had followed him with one thought in mind, knowing what he was up to. Leaving now would only be ridiculous. But she wasn't 100% sure of what was happening inside that house, too. She had to go inside and be a witness to be sure about filing for divorce and ruining his finances later. Yes. That's what I'm doing, she talked herself up, pulled down the visor to wipe her tears and check herself in the mirror. His mistress would certainly not see a troubled woman. An elegant woman with much better morals would walk in there, discern the truth, and walk out without making a scene. Ada nodded once at herself and finally got out of her car. But as she crossed the street and got closer to the old house, her resolve not to be crazy and cry started to dissolve. Her stomach turned again, along with her emotions, and her breaths came quicker. She started to walk faster, stopping at the door and raising her fist. "What? Am I going to knock politely too?" Ada shook her head and touched the doorknob, twisting and entering in a flash. "What's going on here?" she asked as soon as she walked in. Her tone revealed her distress, and she was sure the elegant woman she imagined was nowhere in sight. But it didn't matter. She was inside and ready for anything, except what came running to her. A big dog with tons of fluffy hair came running to the door with his tongue lolling out. His big paws lifted and collided with her chest, pushing her back. Ada had to use her hands to grab the door frame and keep from falling onto the front porch. "Ragnar! Stop!" Leonard said as Ada felt the dog licking her neck, trying to reach her face. Okay. Good boy. Good boy," Ada said when she regained her balance and petted the dog. Leonard moved closer and grabbed the dog's collar to pull him away from her. Ada was still breathing rapidly as her eyes adjusted to the house's interior. It was cluttered with old, vintage-looking furniture and shelves full of curiosities, the kind her grandmother used to collect. "Ragnar, come here," a woman's voice snapped her thoughts away from the decoration, and Ada finally saw the woman her husband came to visit. An old woman was sitting on a rocking chair. Ada's mouth parted slightly, and her eyes finally went to her husband, who had one lifted eyebrow and a quizzical look. "Ada, what are you doing here?" he asked, still holding the dog's collar. I, she stuttered, unsure of herself now. "Leonard, dear. Is this your wife?" the old woman asked, one hand patting the dog's head. "Yes, Eleanor." "This is Ada." Leonard smiled and nodded at the woman, then his face turned back to Ada. "Ada, this is Eleanor. My mom's best friend." Ada's brows lifted as her mouth opened wider. "Oh," she muttered. "It's so nice to meet you." "Likewise, darling. Would you like some coffee and cookies?" "You can tell me all about you," Eleanor said, her eyes getting smaller with her big smile. "Your husband has told me a lot, and I told him to bring you by for dinner, but he said only after I recover." "Recover?" Ada asked as she moved closer to the old woman, although she felt her husband's eyes staring daggers into the side of her face. "Yes, it's the darndest thing. I moved back here, and on my first week, I slipped right on the porch," Eleanor explained, moving her hands while talking. "You know, age sneaks up on you." "She still thinks she's 20, Leonard added, shaking his head. "Ada, help me with something in the kitchen." "What?" "No. It's my house. I can't have my guests working in my own house." Eleanor shook her head and tried to lift herself from the rocking chair, but winced. No. Stay seated." Ada raised her hands. "I'm not a guest." "Not really. We're family, right? We'll be right back." "Oh, dear. When I get better, I swear I'll return to being a proper host." Eleanor sat back, sighing. Ada followed Leonard into the kitchen and watched him crossing his arms. "I'm sorry," she blurted before he could say or accuse her of anything. "Ada, what's going on? Why did you follow me here?" he asked, confused. "You've been so strange, going to work early. And I got suspicious. And I saw you taking your ring off through the window," she admitted, ashamed but curious. "Why did you do that if Eleanor knows about me?" Her husband laughed. "I wasn't hiding my marriage, Ada. I was hiding the ring. Ragnar took it right off my finger the first day I came to see Eleanor after her fall. I barely got to him in time, or he would have swallowed it whole." Ada's mouth dropped open again. "Oh my God. Poor thing," she said, chuckling slightly. "Yeah, so I make it a habit to take it off, or I'll forget." He laughed a bit too. "I'm surprised he didn't go for yours, though. Thank God. I wouldn't have been able to stop him." "He's huge," Ada said. "But gorgeous." "So," he sighed. "You thought I was cheating?" He sighed again, his shoulder moving heavily. "I'm sorry, too. I should have told you about Eleanor. It's just that I know you. I know you've been anxious lately, and you would have been here 24/7, trying to care for her," Leonard tried to explain. I don't know. I guess I thought this was my responsibility and not yours. It's mine, too. We're married, Ada frowned. She's your late mother's best friend. You never mentioned her, but you two are clearly close. Yeah. She was there for my mom through everything, caring for me and helping out even with bills. When Mom got sick, she was there, too. Got me through it. She left for Montana to be with her kids before I met you. But she moved back because she hates the cold. Ada nodded, grabbing his hands and rubbing them. Her daughter told me they're hiring someone to help every day, but they haven't found someone yet, so I came, he continued. It's the least I could do. I love you, Ada said simply, and they kissed. All suspicions had officially disappeared. They returned to Eleanor afterward, and Leonard had to leave for work shortly. But Ada decided to stay the rest of the day, and the old woman told her all kinds of stories about Leonard's childhood. But when Ada took a bite of one of her cookies, the sickness in her stomach returned in full force. She ran to the bathroom just in time and emptied everything. Ragnar sat beside her, his fur providing some comfort. I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I don't know what happened, but I've been feeling off all morning, Ada said, shaking her head after exiting the bathroom. When her eyes focused, she saw Eleanor smiling widely and knowingly. Oh, dear. Congratulations, the old woman said. What? Come closer, Eleanor urged, lifting her hands to her stomach. Yeah. I'm sure of it. Ada's eyes widened. Well, that explains everything, she thought.